Welcome or welcome back to day 49 of our chess journey to 1500 ELO on chess.com. Let's just jump ahead into our browser and look for an opponent. So now we get Pini Kelly from Greece, or Israel, sorry. I don't quite know how I thought that was Greece, but I think the colors might be a bit similar. We go into the Queen's Gambit declined here. And this is a nice sight, I think, because this means our opponent is playing a somewhat subpar move. Let's have a look here. Could we perhaps play a symmetrical position? This is not the best move because now they close in their bishop, by the way. This looks okay. There might be an argument here for playing c6, but I think we might go ahead and play like this. We will have this diagonal opened up. But our opponent can't really hit us there right now. Now this has apparently transposed into a bizarre opening here, which is the Indian game, and it's a Yusupov-Rubinstein system. So I'm a bit curious here as to what the best moves are. I haven't had time to look at this e3 move in my chess book material yet, but I think the way we have been playing so far with this move here is probably okay against it. Now I think we might have the option of playing up like this, or we could capture on d4. This would invite some imbalance into the position, which does seem a bit interesting to me. But first I would like to get our piece out, because this can always be played at a later point, and if our opponent takes, I think we might be quite happy. Well, they go, they castle. Now we are going to force something here, perhaps. There might be an argument for forcing an isolated pawn structure for our opponent, and then this would be under pressure. Either way, we will go ahead and start with this move, I think. If we take here, they take. This pawn is going to be interesting trying to play against, because we are in control of the square in front of it. But this might be a bit inaccurate, as we are opening up the center a bit early on, perhaps. But I think our king should be safe here, because after this and this, we don't have to address this pawn just yet. And we might play like this. What happens if they push? Then we just take, and they can't really. Yeah, I think this would be good. It seems like we would win a pawn if they push, so we might as well go ahead and do this. There might be an argument for playing up here, but I would like to get castled as quickly as possible. Now this has opened up here, so this bishop might go on ahead and pin us. So I think there is an argument here for playing to e7. This should be no good, as it closes down our vision on this pawn. And I'm not really seeing any of those moves over here. Bishop to b4 might be playable. But I think we might just get hit with the moves like this, which would help our opponent gain space. It might help us develop and hit this pawn though, but we might hit that pawn in other ways, for example by going like this, blocking the pawn here, and coming on around perhaps. So let's come out like this. And now this is not as dangerous of a move. So which moves could we see here? We see this, which might prepare a pawn push. It might just be that our opponent has the resources to push this pawn now. Can't really add another attacker onto d5, I think. We might have this move, but then they take, and we would have to take like this, and we would play with an isolated pawn ourselves too. Instead, I think I would like to castle, and if they push, I think we might dodge their pawn like this, hitting the bishop. And then they might have to leave the defense of this pawn with the bishop. But they might do so by doing this. And then we might see this move. Which honestly, this does seem a bit awkward. At least it doesn't seem to be in our best interest. Could we play this move now? What happens if we go here and our opponent goes down here? If we block, it seems like this might just transpose into an unfavorable position. However, I am looking at this move now, because if they push and we take, can they take? They might be able to do so, and then we might get punished for having our king in the center of the board. So this is seeming a bit awkward. Let me check this once again. Does this work now? A6. So if they push and we go here, they can't check us, and then they would have to leave the defense of this pawn. And we might be able to pick it up because they lose an attacker. This would look like this, this, this. Then they might go back. We would trade, and then in this position we might be able to play like this, and then we would win a pawn. So let's play this move. It also restricts this knight. I think it's important we keep this pawn as weak as possible and prevent our opponent from pushing it. Because if they do push it, they are able to get rid of their weakness. We just want to keep on piling on the pressure onto this pawn and controlling the square in front of it. It seems like our opponent here sees our idea and prepares this to fall back to a2 if we hit their bishop, which I think is a great move by our opponent. Now what happens if we play like this and they drop back? I'm not quite convinced this is all that good. But this might not be all that bad either. This would prepare this here, allowing us to hit this square with our own piece. But still we do have our king in the center. Let's look at this once again. This knight can't really move to a good square. What happens if we take, they take, we take, they take? Yeah, I'm not quite convinced. So here I think we might want to castle first and not spend any more time. And now I am expecting d5. But our opponent doesn't play it. And this might give us time to execute our plan here. If we do get a couple more moves, I think we might be in a good spot. So let's go up like this. And now we can get this move. But after this, I still don't quite see it. Worst case, I think we have to go here and trade, but now we don't have the bishop to trade back like this. So honestly, I'm not all that happy with this position here, but we might be able to play b4. And if they go like this and we take, we pressure this knight and they can't push the pawn, but I think we might weaken ourselves a bit too much perhaps, or we might not quite do so. It's a bit difficult to evaluate, I think. Let's have a look at this again. What happens if we... I think we might have to play like this, honestly. This might be good, but it seems a bit weakening. So I didn't quite opt for it. Now what happens if we see d5? Our opponent does not play it. Now this gives me some hope we might get a good outpost soon. Here, because they give up this square. I would like to reposition this knight. This allows us to fight for this square here. What happens if they go here? Then we might have to go back with our knight, so that's not all that good. How about looking at this move? I think we might want to occupy the square here in front of the isolated pawn. And then we can target it afterwards with a move like this. And it might get difficult to defend as time goes on. We can get our pieces in like this, for example, and double up rooks. And I don't quite see an easy way to defend the pawn. There might be a way of doing so, but it would cost a lot of time and resources, I think. We do have to be careful our opponent doesn't turn this into an attack against our king, though. We wouldn't want to hang a mate. Well, our piece is captured, and I think we'll go up here and occupy this square. Now they might go back here, which I think we would like to see. Then we just drop back and keep on piling pressure onto this pawn. But honestly, if they go here and we drop back, they might push the pawn straight away. So that might be a bit awkward. I do have to make sure I don't get too blindsided on this pawn, though, as this is not the entire position. We get this bishop move. Can we start developing our remaining pieces here? Now I think we might have an idea here of moving this knight up. This, and we can take now. And we can occupy this square and hit our opponent like this. This also activates our bishop. So let's go up here. And then our rooks are sure to follow, I think. I would like to eliminate this dark squared bishop, sorry. Because this is their bishop that can defend this pawn. So it might get a bit easier to attack them if we get this bishop out of the game. It also looks down here, stares down at our king, which might be somewhat of a hassle as time goes on. Now I think we can drop back, and because we opened up this bishop, our opponent can't push this pawn. Where should we go to? We might go back here. I don't quite like going to the side here, as we might get hit, and I don't quite like that. But now this knight here is a bit offside, I'm realizing, because it can't jump in because of this bishop. So we might bring it back and try to find a better square for it. I think we might want a configuration like this, rooks like this, or like this, and we should find a square for our queen as well. The knight jumps in. Is this best, or should we go here? I don't want to get hit by the rook though. So let's go up one square. We might have some f6 ideas to kick the knight, but we don't necessarily have to play so just now though. Is this a move at some point? It might force us back here. So we do have to control c6, or we might lose our knight at some point. This is played. I don't really like those moves here. Let's go back. This threatens a knight trade. Which should favor our opponent, as this would bring their pawns back together, so we don't quite want the trade. But trading on those terms here seem more interesting to me. If we move here, we will get hit. But then we just slide on over, and we can trade rooks down here, for example. So let's go on ahead and capture with our queen. But now this would force us to retake with the pawn, but it would be a free pawn. Let's go like this, I think. I'm expecting this, this, and this. And then we can play for something like this at some point. We just want to make sure we don't go here and give them a discovery. So let's move like this. We want to control the open files. Now this does work right now, but it might not work later on. We don't want to fall into any tactics down the line. So this is looking interesting. Just want to make sure we don't hang any tactics here. I'm not seeing any, so this is hopefully okay. We are still looking at bishop to f6 to put pressure on this pawn. Let's have a look here. What would I play as our opponent? I'm honestly not quite sure, but I would try to move the queen and connect the rooks in some way. Maybe playing on the c file or playing on the d file, or a combination of the files, I think. Alternatively, no, they do go back here. Honestly, I don't quite see the idea of this move. They can't play here. So let's just keep on playing our own plans here. Now could our opponent defend this pawn? Neither of the rooks can move to defend it. This doesn't work. We have 3 attackers and they have 2 defenders, so we might just win this pawn now. They can't push because we also have 4 defenders. So this might be a nice position where we can trade down and play an endgame up 1 pawn. At least I'm hoping so. And if we do get this, and this bishop is pinned to the king, we can capture and then move out of the way. But we get this. Now I'm looking at this move. And we will just go on ahead and play it. If they take, we take back, and I think we should be quite happy. They can't really pin us, because the rooks can't get onto d1, or the d file in general, I guess. I'm seeing a fork here even, which we might consider. But we get this, so let's take back with our queen. Is our opponent looking for this, trying to get activity? That might be the case. I'm honestly not quite sure. Let's have a look here. This might look a bit... No, I think this should be fine, honestly. We could play up here, which might force this. And then we could come on around. Yeah, they trade queens. I would like to control the c8 square here though, because I don't want our opponent at least to double up on the c-file and get counterplay. This, and we might have to go back if we want to control this, but then this would not be good, because they just double, and then we can't play this anymore. So if they play on the C file, we might have to play on the D file in return. So we can't prevent their activity altogether, but we might try to at least get our own activity, which might work out in our favor. As long as this is defended and this is defended, they can't do a whole lot. I'm still looking at this. One of the reasons I like this move as well is they can't double up rooks here now. So honestly, let's just go for this and see what happens. If we get this, we might even push this pawn and play behind a passed pawn. So this, and we can play for this kind of a position, which I think should be nice for us. I'm looking at this outpost here, which is seeming quite awkward. But it would cut our opponent's connection though with the rooks. Now does this trap our bishop? That's an important question. Are we able to take the pawn or not? This... I think we can always play this move. So let's say we get this and this. That does trap the bishop, I think. Yeah, I think it does. So that's a good find. We might have to leave this diagonal, but now we can play here. This, I think, is an important move. Threatens back rank stuff, and it also controls c7, which is a file where our opponent might want to double up. What happens if we get this? We might want to play g7. Let's have a quick look here. This move is a fork. Let's go on ahead and play it. This, and I think we play g6. This doesn't look ideal though, but we get this first, and they can't take our pawn. So I think I'm quite confident this is not a horrible position at least. After all, we are playing up an endgame, one pawn up. Let's keep on going with our plans. I think what I calculated should work. If we get this, I was considering this move, but honestly, this move probably works now. Now we control the third file here, or the third rank. I'm still expecting this, but we get to our opponent's pawn before they get to ours. Now this is no longer a fork, as g3 is protected. I think we can grab the pawn. Yeah, I think this should be okay. I'm not seeing a way of trapping us now. So this should be okay, probably, and hopefully. We might have this move to hit b5, or b4 rather, and escort our bishop out. There might be a check here, which should force their king up, probably like this, and then we could come in behind here, for example, and hitting this pawn. This is important, they can't come down there, but this I think should be good for us. Now we take, they take, and we get an additional pawn. All our pawns are in light squares, so their bishop can't do a whole lot. Now let's pull our bishop back and get our rook into the game. I was considering this, but let's not play that move. because this would weaken our pawn and we can't push the other one if it's locked behind our bishop. But now we can play like this. But before doing so, or honestly we might do so straight away, because our opponent can't really punish this. This pawn can't be taken. If they hit it, we defend it. They activate their bishop. I think we push this pawn, or we might not have to do so just now. Let's bring the king first. We can always push up here. Let's push this pawn. I'm not seeing our opponents follow up after king to e5, which was a move I was a bit worried about, but I think that might not be that dangerous. Now we are threatening, just keeping on bulldozing on here. Now though, I'm seeing a remaneuver. But that might not be necessary. Let's just keep on going. Here I think we have to push this pawn first, perhaps. Or do we? Yeah, I think we will push this pawn. And now we threaten a promotion quite soon. This, and if they take, we play up a piece. And this should be good, I think. I think we might move up here. If they go over, I would like to get our bishop onto this diagonal and dislodging theirs. This might be a move now, because we can't push this pawn. So I might have blundered one of the pawns, which would be unfortunate, but that happens. Now though, yeah, we don't really have a lot of time. Let's go for this. This might not be good. But what I'm looking at here is this. Our opponent has to defend this. And now we bulldoze on through on the other side. Here we should have all the time in the world to pick up pawns. This, and we come with check. I think our opponent's king is too far away. I'm hoping they go onto this diagonal, but they won't go here, probably. Now we get another post pawn, which we can try to push up the board. I would like to try trapping our opponent's bishop, because once it's dead, they have no counterplay. If we are able to play here, they can't move away, because this diagonal is their only way of moving right now. But honestly, this bishop can't move to a lot of squares. We are covering all those, so their mobility is quite limited. They can't go up here to come around, because then we win their bishop. I think we can just keep on pushing. They might go here. Let's have a quick look here. I think we can play like this. If they take the pawn, we push, and this looks like another winning endgame with fewer complications. And they can't even take, because we go like this. So I'm quite confident this should be a win, up 3 pawns here. I don't think we have to be fancy, we can just play like this. And now we push. Let's just go up the board. We drop our bishop back, and our opponent can't prevent this maneuver. I think we can just pre-move. There is no stalemate here. So let's just promote. Now we do have to checkmate, but that should be okay. We just mirror our opponent's king's movements. But they resign first. And now we can jump on into our game review. Thanks a lot for the game, Pinikali from Israel. This brings us up to 1384 ELO. Let's have a look at how we played. I see we made 6 mistakes, so there is probably something to criticize. We did play with an accuracy of 90.0 today, and our opponent played with an accuracy of 83.0. Let's have a look here. We had this move, which apparently was a good move. I hoped it was so. It seems to have been okay. I wasn't aware of the name, but I didn't want to move our bishop here and then afterwards playing for c4 or c5, because then we might lose a tempo by moving twice. This was okay. The engine preferred capturing, but the evaluation bar stays at 0 still. Here, okay, we should have apparently captured here first, and then we should have gone like this. Honestly, I'm not seeing the difference, but let's see what the engine prefers here. It looked at this. Okay, that makes sense, because then we wouldn't have forced an isolated pawn because we might have had one ourselves too. Well, we didn't see that, and neither did our opponent, but it is a good thing to try to remember. The move order was important here, because now we got a weakness to target. All good moves. This does stay at near equality. Here we should have played knight to a5, which we did play later on, but in a worse position. Now we played it. Apparently this was still good. I didn't like this because I thought this pawn seemed a bit difficult to play with. But for some reason I didn't realize we could just capture with the queen. So well, we went back like this, went up again, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And even still, the computer did prefer this outpost. But here I'm a bit confused, because doesn't this lose a pawn for us? Ah, okay. This is a double threat, and our opponent should have played here, and this would have forced a trade. Yeah, I didn't see this, and neither did our opponent. But we did trade. We took the file here. I did go to d6 and not d7 because I thought behind the queen here we might want to double our rooks. So I wanted 2 squares for our rooks. But this was not the best. We should have went a bit further back. The computer said it was not that different of an idea. a5 was apparently good here. But this, and here we won a pawn. This was a mistake by our opponent. We should have played like this, which is essentially the same idea as the one we went for, but we just didn't see our opponent's idea of trapping our bishop, because we went for a flawed idea, because there was a tactic. Still, this does seem to have worked quite well. h6 was apparently a bit better. This was good now. We took a pawn, and now our opponent allowed us to get into this good endgame. Here we got this configuration here. We pushed our pawns. f5 was good. Well, the evaluation is quite similar. We got this, which was still good. This was apparently the best move, but on the low depth here, it is not quite as blessed as it is on this deeper depth engine, where it says -5. But I guess that's the case for probably a lot of the moves, or so I would suspect, because as you calculate on through endgames, the situations often snowball. Here we went up, which was good. We traded, we pushed, and here I think the game was pretty much over. This was apparently an inaccuracy, because we had mate in 19 in this previous position. But this too was a mate. And now our opponent resigned. Well, that's our game for today, guys. We got another win in our book. This brings us up to 1384 ELO. And I'm quite happy we got a good game as black against 1d4 today. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you all tomorrow. Bye bye.